B'yachad. How good it is.
How good it is.
How sweet it is.
How sweet it is.
To be together on this day. How good it is.
How good it is.
How sweet it is.
How sweet it is.
To be together on this day. Hine matov. Hine matov. Umanayim. Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov. Umanayim. Shevet achim gam yachad. Shalom aleichem. Shalom aleichem. Salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem. Salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem. Salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem. Salam aleikum. How good it is.
How good it is.
How sweet it is.
How sweet it is.
To be together on this day. How good it is.
How good it is.
How sweet it is.
How sweet it is.
To be together on this day. Hine matov. Hine matov. Umanayim. Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov. Umanayim. Shevet achim gam yachad. Thank you to Abby Cole. She will be coming up to play a number of things on guitar with us throughout our service. Thank you for starting us off with such a wonderful welcome. Please put your guitar down and we'll bring you back up.
So as we continue with the lighting of our Shabbat candles, when I was exploring Omaha, people said, Rabbi, just be careful about what you say to anyone, about anyone, because they might be related. I mention that because we're going to be inviting up Iris and Marty Ricks to light our Shabbat candles, and they're related. So Iris and Marty, their cousin is Evan. Evan is married to Shari Rubin, who is my wife's first cousin. So I'd like to invite up my cousins, Iris and Marty Ricks, to light our Erev Shabbat candles. So be careful of what you say about them to me.
Please join me. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Oh, come on. That's not the level of Shabbat shalominess we're looking for. We can try that one more time. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
It is so wonderful to welcome all of you as we join together in worship and in song here this evening. A few things to mention. First of all, we are delighted to welcome our friends from St. Andrew's Episcopal Church here with Father Keith to enjoy our Shabbat service with us here this evening. And thank you to Brooklyn for answering all of their questions correctly, because if I answer them, goodness knows what kind of answers they're going to get. Secondly, we do ask that you take a moment to look around, note where the exits are in the sanctuary. If we should need it, an AED machine is back in our front office. Fire extinguishers are in the back. We just point this out as part of our standard safety features. We also do ask that you make sure that your seat backs and tray tables are in their full upright lock positions throughout our service, and that your cell phones are turned to silent or turned off so as not to interrupt the sanctity of our wonderful worship experience. And now with that in mind, I'm going to invite you to take a moment to look around and see if you're seated near someone you do not recognize, you do not know, or you haven't seen in a while, or maybe you just saw 30 seconds ago, and introduce yourself or say hi and wish them a Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
And now the important thing is to keep doing that after the service as we gather together for our oneg. Now, not only is it Shabbat, but as Cantor reminded me, it is the second night, or about to be the second day of Elul, which is a time of spiritual preparation for the High Holy Days. And despite my best efforts, we are not able to postpone the High Holy Days this year. So as we do with our Elul reflections, which we send out every day, except on Shabbat, I also like to offer this up on this Shabbat as we begin this important journey to prepare our souls. Our tradition calls this process of self-reflection cheshbon hanefesh, literally making an accounting of the soul. It's what the month of Elul is all about. This is a period of preparation as we anticipate standing naked and humble before God during the High Holy Days period. It takes time to ready ourselves to stand before God, and it takes a lot of work too. Although these tasks are not easy, Elul does offer us an opportunity to begin again, fully restored to life. Each day we take stock of our lives as we consider our actions and interactions over the previous 12 months. Today we begin only with ourselves unafraid to confront our previous exploits. For in the transformational process of teshuvah, we come to learn that these actions are no longer a part of who we are now. They are part of who we were, and we can seek out new actions to become part of who we truly wish to be. And so with that in mind, we are going to reflect on Elul as we continue with the melodies of Shabbat with Achat Sha'alti.
Achat sha'alti meit Adonai. Achat sha'alti ota avakesh. Achat sha'alti meit Adonai. Achat sha'alti ota avakesh. Shivti, shivti, beveit Adonai. Shivti, shivti, kol yemei chayai, lachazot b'noam Adonai. ולבקר בהיכלו. לחזות בנועם אדוני. To gaze upon the beauty of One thing I ask you, Adonai, to be with you all of my life. One thing I ask you, Adonai, to be with you all of my life.
And we continue now with the welcoming in of the Sabbath bride with L'Chadodi.
שלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובשולה, תוכלוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לך דודי, לקראת כלה, תני שבת לקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, תני שבת לקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה.
And we remain standing for the call to worship for the Baruch Hu. So we invite Abby back up.
Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, 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 yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. Barechu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach le'olam va'ed. Yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. Thank you, Abby.
And please join me if you wish. I aspire to an eloquent seeing of all earth's seasons, inspired touching of flesh, flower, and stone, true hearing of others, journey, self, and terrain, the difficult dignity of individual thought, an inner burning of commandment, a sometimes certainty of divine presence, weaving of sorrow into becoming, upwelling of seated but surprising joy, into this life courageously toward the unknown purpose.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem, Amen.
Please join me. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
Ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha netar b'kodesh, nora tehilot, osef eleh. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha netar b'kodesh, nora tehilot, between us and the gates of freedom, but we shall overcome one day. With a tambourine in a mighty hand, across the sea and the desert sand, the children sing for Miriam. Next year in the promised land. Next year in the promised land. Next year in the promised land. Next year in Jerusalem. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai. Mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh. Nora tehilot, nora tehilot, osef eleh. And the river divides,
And the river divides,
and the river forgives,
and the river forgives,
and the river's a wall, and the river's a bridge to freedom, freedom. But we shall overcome one freedom, freedom. Yes, we shall overcome one day. Yes, we shall overcome one day.
We continue now with the wonderful song of Shabbat with Vishamru.
Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורות ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורות ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. Thank you, Rabbi.
Please join me. Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, rebuild a weakened will. Continue now with the Amidah, the central section of our worship service. We invite all those who so choose to rise in body and or in spirit at this time.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi agiti latecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei HaKol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, u'mevei Geula livnei bneihem, leman shemo be'ahava, Melech Ozer u'Moshiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, mechayeh kol atah rav lehoshia, morid hatal, mechakel chaim bechesed, mechayeh hakol berachamim rabim, somech noflim ve'rofech olim, umatir asurim, umechayeh emunato, lishenei afar, michamocha bal gevurot, umida melech, melech memit umechayeh, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman atah lachayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, mechayeh hakol. Atah kadosh, v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yahalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru
At this time in our worship service, we take some time to think about friends, family, loved ones, those in our lives, our homes, our communities, our congregational family, our worlds, all those who are ill and ailing. You can find many of their names up on our screen. On this Shabbat, we think of Susan Alexander, Joe Alvarado, Susie Anderson, Hal Arnold, Juventino Avalos, Virginia Becker, Tony Beraldi, Matt Blumkin, Jeff Bradfield, Jean Brosco, Lisa Brunkhorst, Hildado Carrera, Sandy Christofferson, Ashley Coleman, Kevin Cooper, John Cunningham, Jen Dawson, Dominic Eads, Ariana Elnis, Scott Farkas, Mildred Fisher, Jenny Forrell, Judy Kamen, Ronald Kaplan, Nancy Katz, Stephen Kipperman, Karen Levin, Brandy Matson, Emily McWhirter, Carmen Munn, Brian Nog, Pedro Comey Olimpio, Nadine Ostro, Doris Parker, Wendy Passer, Gail Peterson, Kathy Popelka, Brian Pruitt, Mark Ratner, Mimi Rogers, Gloria Romero Downing, Holly Rosenberg, Samuel Rosinski, George Sachs, Steve Seglin, Teresa Serrano, Linda J. Sherman, Renee Sloan, Teresa Smith, Dee Dee Spiegel, Chrissy Swenson, Sarah Jane Tietzel, Laura J. West, Barb Wigg, Brent Wine, Norm Wine, Kate Uel. If there are any additions or corrections, we invite you to mention them at this time. You're welcome to add names too if you wish. And those joining us virtually, we also add Sheldon Babendor, Diana Etzhoken, Candy Vogel, David Bloom, Daniel Randy Bloom, Frida Salas, Ted Agar, David Irvine, Bob Pearson. And I'd like to add Robert Sharff and Linda Sharff. Mishaberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzhak V'Yaakov V'imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachel V'Leah. May the God of our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Leah, bless all those who are ill and ailing with a refuah shlema, complete recovery of mind, of body, of spirit. And for those who are unable to make a complete recovery, May God continue to be a source of peace and comfort in their lives. May God provide strength to those who are dealing with the challenges of mental illness and or addiction. And for those who are dealing with the afflictions of the world, may God help heal them speedily and soon and return them to the embrace of their loved ones. May God grant strength to those who love them, wisdom and compassion to those who care for them, and strength to all of us who love them. And together as one loving family, let us say,
Amen.
Amen.
Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov. Mi sheberach imateinu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, v'Rachel. Me, the one who blessed our mothers. Me, the one who blessed our fathers. Hear our prayer. With the power of your healing, bless us with the power of your hope. May our hearts be filled with understanding and strengthened by the power of your love. Bless us with a vision for tomorrow. Help us to reach out to those in pain. May the warmth of friendship ease our sorrow. Give us courage, give us faith, show us the way. Mi sheberach avoteinu, mi sheberach imoteinu. Hear our
This week we'll be reading from Parashat Shoftim. It begins Shoftim v'shotrim tein lecha b'chol sharecha asher Adonai Elohecha noten lecha. You shall appoint for yourselves magistrates and officials for your tribes in all the settlements that the eternal your God is giving you, and they shall govern the people with due justice. You shall not judge unfairly. You shall show no partiality. You shall not take bribes. For bribes blind the eye of the discerning and upset the plea of the just. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. Justice, justice, you shall pursue, that you may thrive and occupy the land that the eternal your God is giving you. Here Moses is instructing the Israelites in the ethical and administrative expectations for the community that they are about to establish for themselves. At the heart of it is the phrase tzedek, tzedek, tirdof, the passionate pursuit of justice, a theme that has and continues to define how we, as Jews, interact with the world. The idea of how we interact with the world is a central theme of Torah study, of Talmud study, and is also the topic of almost every sermon given from the pulpit. But there is a darker side to the conversation, and that is how the world all too often interacts with us, sometimes deliberately, sometimes accidentally, and of course how we are expected or are supposed to respond. But more on this in a moment. Not to date myself, but as a child of the 80s and 70s and 90s, I was exposed to any number of bands and genres of music, which has greatly impacted my musical taste, or as my kids would argue, lack thereof. There was new wave like Devo, punk bands like The Clash, metal like Metallica, rock like U2 and Guns N' Roses, and so many others that we could spend all night talking about them. But there's one I wanted to talk about this evening, and that was a band that came out of Athens, Georgia. As Allie Patton, a writer for American Songwriter, explained, more than a sulky college rock quartet, REM were the post-punk pagan priests enchanting a generation stuck somewhere between the dissolution of gritty punk and the emergence of poppy new wave. Instrumental in the creation of the alternative rock scene in the late 80s and early 90s, REM blazed the trail. They helped disenfranchised punks everywhere escape into music, inspiring once fledgling bands like Nirvana and Radiohead, Pearl Jam, Stone Temple Pilots, to pursue a sound that betrayed all things mainstream. As Allie goes on to write, their music will endure, but only one song will soundtrack the end of times. It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. The song is a flurry of words, probably about as chaotic as any rapture will be. Mentions of earthquakes, hurricanes, and continental drifts are sung alongside images of birthday parties, cheesecake and jelly beans in a paradox of sounds. At the heart of the song, amidst the jumble of words, at just about any party, you can hear Michael Stipe sing and everyone in the audience shout, Leonard Bernstein. When I first heard this name, I had to ask, who's Leonard Bernstein? And what did he have to do with the coming apocalypse? According to singer Michael Stipe, he had a dream where he and his bandmates attended a party that was also attended by Lester Bangs, Lenny Bruce, Leonid Brezhnev, and of course, Leonard Bernstein, all LBs. Perhaps Freud could find some connection between the four, but given that this song came out 3 years before his death, it helped to immortalize Bernstein among a new generation of music aficionados. Now there is a new attempt to immortalize Bernstein, but this one is by far much more controversial with Bradley Cooper's new movie, which he wrote, directed, and starred in as Leonard Bernstein. As far as I can tell, there are two controversies associated with Maestro. The first is as Cooper, who was not Jewish, portraying Bernstein in film. And the second, his choice to wear a prosthetic nose, which may or may not get into some anti-Semitic motifs. The first, Cooper playing Bernstein, is in part a part of a larger cultural conversation about representation in film. As writer Mary Ellen Dowd notes, representation in the fictional world signifies social existence. Absence means social, symbolic annihilation, in the words of George Gerbner. Representation is a key aspect of individual empowerment in a society that so highly values media as a forecaster of culture. It becomes increasingly more difficult for an individual or a group of individuals to find value in their differences when they are constantly ignored, or worse, alienated for those differences by popular media. In terms of race and film, this process of ignoration and alienation began with the inception of the moving picture and continues to some extent today. As the founders of what would later become Hollywood, Jews were involved in every element of production, from owning the studios to writing and acting and directing. However, more often than not, they were to create the idealized picture of an American, but not necessarily a Jewish American. That being said, there does seem to be a concerning trend with more and more non-Jews playing Jewish characters. But that is a conversation for another day. The issue that I wanted to talk about tonight is also raised with regards to Helen Mirren's, another non-Jew, portrayal of Golda Meir in the upcoming movie Golda. In both cases, along with Maestro, the producers have made the decision to exaggerate the noses of both Golda and Leonard. Now, to be fair, Leonard Bernstein's children have offered up their own thoughts, stating, quote, "It happens to be true that Leonard Bernstein had a nice big nose. Bradley chose to use makeup to amplify his resemblance, and we're perfectly fine with that." The statement continues. "We're also certain that our dad would have been fine with it as well. Any strident complaints about this issue strikes us above all as disingenuous attempts to bring a successful person down a notch, a practice we observed all too often perpetuated on our own father. And yet, even with their assurances, we may still be bothered by this choice of a prosthetic nose. What is more concerning at this moment is the potential return of the tradition of Jew face. As writer Bryn Shayevitz notes in the Jewish Journal, Jew face is an American vaudeville tradition which stems from such a practice of othering. On the vaudeville stage, Jews and non-Jews would wear prosthetic noses and beards, adopt fake Yiddish accents, and play roles similar to those grotesquely literary characters in order to poke fun at or reinforce pre-existing stereotypes of Jewish immigrants. Within this specific 19th, early 20th century performance practice, Jew face was always an intended form of mockery. Was this the intent of either film, their producers, the actors, or directors? Of course not. They were making artistic choices how to represent on film real, living, breathing human beings. The problem is, someone, somewhere along the line, should have been aware, or at least more aware, of the long-standing tradition of stereotyping Jews. When it comes to the Jewish nose, that tradition dates back to at least the 13th century in Europe, though it really caught on in the late 19th century with such written titles as the satirical anti-Semitic 1893 book, The Operated Jew, which revolves around a plot of cosmetic surgery as a cure for Jewishness. We can debate about the challenges of representation in film, especially given that Jews come in all shapes, sizes, races, genders, and colors. But what we can and should hold people accountable for is when, in the pursuit of artistic integrity, some choose to ignore the history of anti-Semitic depictions in written and cinematic form. Better to forgo the Jewish nose so that the audience instead is thinking about the depiction of the likeness of Bernstein and Golda Meir on screen. Now, of course, as with any other controversial topic, there is debate, even amongst our own Jewish communities, as to whether or not this is actually really an issue, especially when it comes to potentially calling out anti-Semitism where none exists. I would argue that in these two cases, it does not exist. But knowledge of it certainly could have led to better decisions. As actor Tracy Ann Oberman said, as actors, we should be able to play anyone. That is our job, and I've had a wide and varied career playing a multitude of parts. However, we are living in a time of enormous sensitivity around the appropriation of characters played by people who aren't from that background. I have seen little similar concern about Jewish characters where their Jewish religion and cultural identity is intrinsic to who they are being discussed with the same respect. Cooper may be a sincere actor, writer, and director, but alas, he was not fully cognizant of the role that stereotyping of certain physical stereotypes has played in our larger history as Jews. It is not a condemnation of his choice, but more shines a light on a larger cultural pervasiveness to ignore the concerns and the history of the Jewish community. that somehow we as Jews are exempt when such issues arise has only emboldened those who wish to do us harm. Depictions and portrayals matter just as much as how we interact with the world. And wouldn't it be wonderful if there can be more focus on our interaction with the world than those using a stereotyped physical attribute to define one's Jewishness? Or would that result in the end of the world as we know it? Shabbat Shalom. And now we transition to the words of Aleinu, which you can find up on our screen. We invite all of you who so choose to rise in body and or in spirit as we face the ark together.
Aleinu לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל העולם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. Our thoughts turn now to our own loved ones, the martyrs of our people, those who have died in this season and in years past. And we welcome you when you hear the name of a loved one, if you so choose, to rise in body and or in spirit. And if you rise in body, we encourage you to remain standing. We're in the period of Shloshim, the 30 days of mourning for Celine Spencer and for Jerry Goldstrom. And the Yortzites, the anniversaries of the deaths we observe this week, are for Jacob Bernstein, R.A. Bleicher, Riva M. Bolotnikov, Samuel I. Bubb, John David Burns, Gwen K. Cohn, Arthur L. Davidson, Louis Delman, Helen E. Finkel, Bev Minerva Beverly Gendler, Joseph W. Gottsner, Ida Kamen, Leonard Chris Krasna, Annette Lewis Leo, Goldie Levine, Lena Mandelson, Donald Lloyd Marty, Frank Gross McIntyre, J. Leland Meyer, David J. Myers, May Meyerson, Jaime Milder, Max Mick Moskowitz, Mr. Harvey Pickle, Lenore Pollock, Toby Katelman Richards, Nathan Rosenkrantz, Robert K. Silverman, Abe Slusky, Amelia Newman Summer, Charles Stern, Samuel Talon. If there are any additions or corrections, we invite you to mention them at this time. We recall as well the 6 million who perished in the violence of the Shoah. Our griefs and sympathies are mingled as we invite all others who so choose to rise in solidarity with the mourners as we join together in Kadisha Tom, Mourners Kaddish. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach yeruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, v'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayeh d'chol Beit Yisrael, b'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lameo maya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal. Shmei Kudashah b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tush b'chata v'nechemata. Damiram v'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, comfort to all who are bereaved. Together as one loving family, let us say,
Amen.
Amen. And now you may be seated. A few things to mention as we conclude our service here this evening. Special thanks to Abby for joining us tonight and providing such wonderful accompaniment on guitar. Hopefully, we look forward to you joining us in the near future as well. Thank you to everyone in the back of the house for our wonderful accompaniment and for all of you for joining us. As a reminder, Sunday is our first youth learning of the year. We are so excited for a wonderful year. If you have any questions, please contact Director of Education Jenny Gates Beckman. We'll see you Sunday, 9:30, where we're going to welcome in the Pancake Man. We're going to sing some songs, and we're going to have a wonderful day of learning. Sunday is also the Rosh Chodesh event, where you get to meet Joy Sharff. If you are still interested in attending, please contact Mindy Marburg. Next Sunday, we will also have our first Temple Tots and Coffee and Conversation with the board. Our last Holy Smokes of the summer is on Tuesday, August 29th. We're inviting the men for an evening on the patio that consists of stogies, stouts, and studious conversation and tremendous alliteration. As we approach the High Holy Days,
The what?
I don't know. We are looking for more volunteers for Toby's team. If you're interested in greeting, ushering during services, general High Holy Day prepping on the food drive team, writing a sermon, or of any other ideas how you could help,
Joining the choir.
Chanting Torah, we would love to hear from you. For more information, please reach out to Joseph Pinson. He's out there in the back. Love to have your help. And as mentioned, we are officially in the month of Elul, which means we're really knocking on the doors of the High Holy Days. I don't know who typed this. Just a reminder to look for your print edition of the High Holy Day Tidings, which will be coming to your mailboxes any day now. But save the date for Slichot on September 9th, and Rosh Hashanah begins September 15th. Rosh Hashanah begins September 15th. And now, please join us as we continue with Kiddush. We invite all those who so choose to rise in body and or in spirit once again.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedeshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'yahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron l'maaseh bereishit, ki hu yom techila למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת, אותנו קידשת, מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך, באהבה וברצון, הנחלתנו. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh hashabbat l'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'te'avon. So, we learned this song back in July when I came back from camp. You can sit down if you want to, but it's kind of fun. You have a couple of parts, so I hope that you'll sing with me. We start on the same pitch, and the words are really easy. Ya-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Can you try like a ya-na-na-na-na-na? Exactly. Julie, what was that pitch again? Ya-na-na-na-na-na. We're going to do that 4 times. Then we're going to go up a little bit and have some new pitches, but it's still ya-na-na-na-na. Then you're going to repeat the words after me. So I hope you'll come and on this song of journey that we are grateful to God because this is the day that God created with joy and with exultation. So it's another wonderful day. Thank you to God for creating it. It's the 2nd of Elul. Makes me a little scared, but we still thank God for its creation nonetheless. Let's try that again. For the sounding of the shofar. Tikia. Shivarim. Teruah. Tikia Gedolah. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.